So out of that 97% is ocean water, we've got 3% that's actual good fresh water, right? But let's take a look. Glaciers and ice caps and polar ice caps, that's taken 2% of that 3% of the water. Wow. And then we've got a little bit more that's we're basically unreachable. It might be too far in the ground that we can't pump it out. In this illustration, that's about as much water is available to us to drink, to irrigate our plants. And if you think billions of people need water, trillions of plants and animals, that's not a lot of water to go around. So we really have to maintain and be concerned about our natural resources for water. So you think an aquifer, what do you think an aquifer is? You think it's like a big lake in the ground? Think again. Let's look at this. Does this look like a big lake in the ground?
No.
No. So an aquifer basically is like a collection of wets, stones, let's say sand, different types of materials underneath the ground that's actually absorbing and holding that water in for us to use, to pump out. There's a couple different types of aquifers. One's called a confined and one's called an unconfined. Here is a good way to see what a confined aquifer looks like. It's the one here on the bottom. You can see it has a layer of like rock, maybe clay, shale, slate. That's confining, that's not allowing the water to absorb upward inside there. So it actually puts some pressure on it, and if you drill a well down into it, like we had in this one, it'll basically, because of the pressure, flow above the confining layer of clay, some kind of impermeable rock. It'll actually flow above that and could possibly flow up and out. We have an example of a artesian well, is what it's called when it's a flowing well, that we drilled on Turner's Ranch in Oshkosh area. And when you open the cap, the water just flows out of it. So we actually dug down a well deep enough to get into that water down there. Do you think that water's fresh? You think it's good to drink down there?
No.
What do you mean, no?
Yes.
Yes. That's probably the freshest water in the land because you can't, none of the contaminants from, let's say you spilled some oil and from feedlots, fertilizer, none of those contaminants can actually go down inside that confining layer. So it's actually the freshest water. A lot of those wells are super deep and not cost efficient to drill. So the majority of the water that we're drinking comes out of an unconfined aquifer. So an unconfined aquifer has no confining layer. So this example here, this foam material is like your topsoil, your dirt, and then underneath it is the different layers of the aquifer. Nice thing about the ground, any microorganisms, bacteria is in the surface of the dirt, and underneath that there's no bacteria, so the sand and gravel actually filters the water, which is a good thing. So we're drinking as fresh water as we possibly can. So let's go ahead and fill this up a little and fill up a lake and a canal so you can see how the water flows. That's basically what happens underground. It's not moving fast like a river. I read some studies say that it takes 20 years to move water a foot. I don't know because I can't see in the ground, but basically it flows pretty slow. So let's say if we get some rain and stuff, do you think it takes quite a while for that water to actually recharge the aquifer? Probably. Do we have any green left in there? So, do you think we can pollute groundwater?
Just near you is definitely.
Okay, I just wanted to see if there's green. Yeah, of course we can pollute groundwater. You can see this example of the green, that's just food coloring. And let's say that was an oil spill or a gas leak. Something that happened that actually flew down into the groundwater. And as you pump it, let's say this is my personal well at home, that I'm drinking out of, I'm actually pumping that contaminated water. And obviously nobody wants to drink contaminated water. What other things you think can contaminate water? Our groundwater. Maybe a feedlot with manure. Some of that manure, the nitrates from the manure might go down in there.
What else did we talk about on the bus on the way down here? What else can pollute water? Okay, what else?
Yeah, there's quite a few things.
What do we talk about at that station over there? What happens if the tractor breaks down?
Oil. You have to clean up the oils.
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of things. A dump site can put contaminants in. Over fertilizing. A lot of people say, well, more is better. I'm going to put a lot of fertilizer around my grass so it turns green. Well, the plant can only absorb so much of the nitrates inside the fertilizer. Where does the rest go? Down into our groundwater. Now, one nice thing about water, it's like the earth will basically never run out of it because it constantly recycles itself. But what the problem is, you guys are probably familiar talking about the water cycle in class and stuff. So basically, the water will evaporate from the lakes and ocean, go into the clouds, rains, and we replenish our groundwater that way. But it takes years and years and years for one drop of water to get into our aquifer. So we got to be careful about the amount that we're pumping out. So even though we won't run out of water, there's a good chance we can run out of good drinkable water. So that's why we have to worry about the quantity of the water in our ground. So what do you think we do here at the NRD to maintain our groundwater? You guys have any idea? What do you think? No, you're just waving? Well, we do a couple things. One thing, I'm part of the team that measures the aquifer twice a year. We measure it in the spring and fall, and we look into seeing how much depletion or gain we have with the aquifer. The last time I did a report on that in the spring, I think it was in the last 20 years, we've lost very little water, maybe like 1 to 2 feet of water in our aquifer. Well, you'd say, why is that? We have times where we're kind of in a drought like we are now, so we're not getting that much recharge to our aquifer. So what else do you think is recharging our aquifer? How about the canal system? So when they open the canal in the spring, some wells around the canal are dry in the springtime when I measure them. In the fall, they have water in it. So the canal system is recharging our water. So that helps. Obviously, a lake will help recharge the water. One of the things that we do here also at the NRD is we limit the amount of water farmers could use to irrigate with from their groundwater. We limit them to 14 acre inches a year. So, how much water do you think is a 14 acre inch? Or is a 1 acre inch? What do you think? 5 gallons, 10 gallons? 27,000 gallons of water is in 1 acre inch. So we give farmers 14 acre inches a year. So for 14 acre inches on 1 acre of ground is 380,000 gallons of water. So you think, oh, that's plenty of water to irrigate your corn and your beets and stuff. But how much water do you think corn takes to grow? Corn takes 14 acre inches of water per acre for their crop. So that's the whole allotment they get. What about a sugar beet? Sugar beets take about 24 acre inches. So if a farmer doesn't have rainfall, they're using all that water in their year and maybe not get a good enough crop if we don't have rain, or they're going to use more than 14 acre inches in their 3-year cycle. They have to use less the next year or two to cover that loss, or the deficit of the most water that they use. So it's very important that they stick to that. because that's the reason why our aquifer isn't depleting. Like, for example, places in Texas, there's hardly any water left in their aquifer. So it's important to save the water. So what do you think are things that you guys can do at home to save water?
If you drink some water and there's some water left in your glass, then don't know.
What do you do with it?
Give it either to like plants or to the ground.
Very good.
Put it in the fridge so you can drink it. When you brush your teeth, when you use your mouth, you leave the water on.
Great. How much water do you think it takes if you brush your teeth and leave the water on?
Oh, 2 gallons.
Like 4 gallons. 4 of those. So there's no need to waste that much to brush your teeth. What about shower? How many gallons of water do you think it takes?
20.
If you take like a 10-minute shower, it's like 25 gallons of water. So go take a 5-minute shower, and then you're using 10 to 15 gallons. If you fill up your bathtub, how many gallons do you think is in the bathtub?
20 gallons.
I'd
say 45.
Yep, about 30 to 50 gallons, depending on the size of the tub. So it's better off to take a shower. What about watering your grass?
depends how much you water your grass. And how much
Yeah.
grass you have.
Should you, like my neighbor, leave the water running on all night long?
No.
Yeah, and making me mad because I work for the Natural Resources District and I have to go and shut it off. But yeah, we don't need to water that much. 20 minutes a section is probably sufficient. So that's one way that we can.
It's getting it watered.
If we had a rain barrel, you can save water inside the rain barrel and use that to water your plants as well. What about washing dishes? You guys see that commercial where they use the dishwasher every night instead of washing it by hand? You use less water. If you have an old-fashioned toilet, it used to take 6 gallons of water to flush. Now the new toilets are only like 1.6 gallons. So all these little ways that we can do at home will help maintain water. Anybody think of any other ideas they have? How about washing? Don't do a load of laundry unless you have a full load. That'll be good. So you got any questions? No?
Those of
Well, I
you guys
gotta-
that have cattle, do you guys have pipeline tanks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you let the floats run over?
No.
No.
The floats shut off.
Yeah, the float shut it off, so we're not wasting that water, right?
There you go. All these things are important. Do you know what they drink, what they do in space with their pee? My cousin is a astronaut and she's been up to space twice. Do you know what they do with their pee up in space?
What?
They have a filter and they clarify the water and they drink with the pee water and they drink it.
You guys need to start doing that?
Yeah. Well, you think about some countries where they're so limited on water, it would be a great idea for them to do, but I guess it's pretty costly to filter that water out. So, but that's how they do it in space because you're limited on what you can bring up to begin with.
Coastside cup will do that.
What's that?
Doesn't your cup filter water?
No. They just put flavors in.
flavors in.
There's a difference.
You guys got some questions for me?
Mason.
Tell me what you learned.
About the overall aquifer.
There you go. And is the aquifer a big lake?
No.
Oh, no.
We learned about water.
I'm glad you learned about water today.
That's what I said. It actually still vaccines are
All right.
Yeah, you wish.
I don't know how to make this go 20 minutes.
What do you put?